Welcome to Part 7 in Northern Perspectives review of Justin Trudeau's top 10 scandals.
On June 25, 2020, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced that the Public Service had selected We Charity to run the government's $912 million Canada Student Service Grant. The Canada Student Service Grant was a new initiative by the Liberal government intended to, quote, encourage young people to take part in service activities that will help them support their community's COVID-19 response and gain invaluable experience, end quote. Students would be eligible to receive $1,000 for every 100 hours of volunteer activities, up to a total of $5,000. Concerns were raised regarding potential labor law violations. The program was viewed by some as a possible exploitation of a vulnerable demographic, being students, in a scarce job market by compensating them at a lower rate than the minimum wage of any province. At the time, minimum wage varied between $11 to $15 per hour, depending on the province, and the grant would have compensated students for a maximum of $10 per hour. Additionally, we had been experiencing layoffs before it was awarded the contract, and having students conduct We Charity work for less than minimum wage in a form of quote-unquote volunteerism, work which was previously conducted by paid employees, was a potential conflict of interest. The unusual thing about this was that the contract awarded to We Charity to run the program was set up as a contribution agreement between We Charity and the government, and not through a competitive process. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau claimed that We Charity was, quote-unquote, the only possible option to administer the program. Other organizations, such as the Public Service Alliance of Canada and YMCA Canada, expressed skepticism at this claim. Soon after announcing that the Liberal government was awarding the contract to We Charity, questions were raised by the opposition parties, stating that both Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Finance Minister Bill Morneau were in conflict of interest, as they both had family ties to We Charity, and neither had recused themselves from Cabinet during discussions on awarding the contract.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians deserve answers after the Prime Minister got caught awarding $1 billion of taxpayers' money to We, an organization that benefited the Prime Minister politically and socially and enriched his family. The Prime Minister famously said that sunshine is the best disinfectant. So, will the Prime Minister let the sun shine in and appear before the Finance Committee to answer questions about this sordid affair, or will he continue to hide?
Well, like the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister has close family with financial ties to the We organization. Despite this, and despite his previous record of ethical breaches, the Finance Minister did not recuse himself from discussions or the decision to award a whopping $43 million taxpayer-funded bailout to the We organization. With broken bank covenants and its board in shambles, did the minister know the state of the We organization when he signed off on this plan worth $912 million taxpayer dollars?
Initially, We Charity members claimed that the Trudeau family had not been paid for their appearance at We events. However, on July 9, 2020, it was discovered that both Justin Trudeau's mother, Margaret, and his brother Alexander were paid nearly $300,000 combined to appear at We Charity events.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Beverly Thompson. Before the break, we were talking about breaking news out of Ottawa regarding the We organization and some of the Prime Minister's family members. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver joins us now from Ottawa to walk us through what we're learning. Annie, what can you tell us?
So what I can tell you is that we're just learning now that Margaret Trudeau, of course, the Prime Minister's wife, earned about $250,000 directly in speaking fees, around $300,000 when you take into account money that was given to the Speaker's Bureau, which then takes a bit of a commission. So this was for 28 different speeches between 2016 to 2020. We've also learned that the Prime Minister's brother was also getting paid by We. So if you look at the statement, they say that he spoke at 8 events during the 2017-2018 academic year and received a total of about $32,000. So you might be asking, well, why is this important? Well, it's because there's now an ethics investigation into this due to the Prime Minister's close ties with We. You have to remember as well that his wife is also involved in this organization. She's an ambassador, and this was an organization that was paid paid millions of dollars to execute the Canada Student Grant Program, which was apparently sole contract, sole sourced by the government to run a student volunteer program where students, instead of who couldn't find a job perhaps this summer, could go and get paid 100 hours of work would give them $1,000, and we was going to provide these volunteer opportunities and help other organizations enable students to get volunteer placement. So, the Prime Minister has come under a lot of fire lately about his close ties to WE and why this organization was chosen. And so that's why this information today is of note.
Yeah, and also an ethics commission active.
Exactly, yes. The ethics commissioner is going to be looking into this, said that she's opened an investigation because of the Prime Minister's close ties. And in fact, yesterday, a reporter asked the Prime Minister whether he recused himself from the decision about whether we should be the one that was allowed to run this Canada Student Grant Program. And he said no, because he's always been involved in youth issues. The Prime Minister yesterday also said that the contract and the decision was something that the Public Service came up with and that Cabinet did approve the decision. But yes, the Prime Minister said he did not recuse himself from this process, and now there is an investigation going in to see, what happened, how this decision was made, and if it was right or if it was wrong.
Additionally, founder Mark Kielburger testified that Margaret, Alexander, and Justin's wife Sophie were reimbursed more than $200,000 in expenses for appearances at WE events.
Nobody believes you when you say you don't know how much money your family has got from the WE group. You've had a month to look into that. You knew you were going to testify here. Again, how much money total have your brother, mother, and spouse received from this organization? How much?
That information has been publicly shared, but I will highlight.
Well, then tell me what it is.
My mother
How much?
has
Just the dollar figure.
Throughout her life.
The dollar figure, Prime Minister.
Various ways, and is
How much?
Of the work that she's done, and I'm proud of her.
How
as well.
much? I'm looking for a dollar figure.
We can get that number for you if you like. It's been out in the media.
It's been in the media, but you don't know it?
Then Finance Minister Bill Morneau faced criticism for not recusing himself from cabinet discussions regarding rewarding the WE contract, as his daughter Grace worked at WE in the travel department and his other daughter Claire had spoken at WE events.
So in the same month as your daughter accepted a position with the organization, you announced a $3 million grant to that organization. You can just tell me if I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
Mr. Chair, I'm obviously very proud of the fact that Grace took on a co-op job at the WE organization.
Later, it was discovered that WE had covered $41,000 in costs for Morneau and his family to travel to Ecuador and Kenya in 2017. Morneau claimed that he didn't realize he hadn't personally repaid WE Charity for these trips, and repaid the costs the same day he found out.
Do you expect us to believe that it is a mere coincidence that you repaid over $40,000 of expenses associated with your travel on a WE charity trip, that you just repaid it today on the same day you were expected to testify under oath about it? Is that just a coincidence, Minister?
Mr. Minister.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. I think what I want to make sure that I communicate is this was a mistake on my behalf. I'm responsible for any expenses that I incur on trips being paid for. This was an expense that I was unaware of, that I did not know had not been paid. And when I found that out over the course of the last
$41,000 expense, you didn't know about a $41,000 expense? How is that even possible?
Mr. Minister.
Again, Mr. Chair, I just have to say that in review of our records, I understood that there was no charge for these these expenses at the WE facilities. And once I found that out, I endeavored to repay that. And of course, it was a mistake on my part, which I take full responsibility for.
The average Canadian living in Red Deer or Halifax that goes on a trip would notice if there was say a $400 expense that they didn't pay. Maybe a hotel room for a couple of nights that never got charged them, and they paid immediately. But you're telling me that on this obviously very luxurious trip, that $41,000 of expenses happened right under your nose, and you didn't know about it until it suddenly, through an epiphany, came to your attention the very day you were to testify in a parliamentary committee about it. You expect us to believe that?
Committee investigations uncovered that although the public service had selected We Charity to administer the grant program, it had been pressured by political forces to select We Charity, and that there had been a significant amount of collaboration between the Liberal government and We Charity prior to the program's creation.
Can we just get the minister to tell us what happened in that meeting without the interference of her Liberal colleagues? That Craig Kielburger then went to Rachel Warnock and said he had two proposals. And that second proposal became the Canada Student Service Grant with just a few bells and whistles at it. So something happened in that meeting, Minister Chagger, and you didn't tell us at Finance. Tell us now. Just come clean.
Did the Kielburgers know that the Prime Minister would make an announcement only days later on April 22nd regarding youth programming?
I cannot speak to the Kielburgers. I personally did not know on April 17th that the Prime Minister would be making that announcement.
Okay, so you didn't know, even though you're the minister responsible for that announcement. Strange.
On August 17th, 2020, Bill Morneau announced his resignation as Finance Minister, and the following day, the Prime Minister officially prorogued Parliament, which served to disband all the sitting committees that were investigating the We Charity scandal. This was particularly scandalous, as in 2015, Justin Trudeau repeatedly chastised the use of prorogation in a 2015 campaign manifesto, had even promised to never make use of prorogation to avoid scrutiny.
The Liberal Party platform in 2015 said it wouldn't use prorogation as a political tactic. There are several committees investigating you right now, and those efforts will be shut down as a result of your move today. How can you have said that in 2015 and do this now?
Stephen Harper and the Conservatives prorogued Parliament in order to shut it down and avoid a confidence vote. We are proroguing Parliament to bring it back on exactly the same week it was supposed to come back anyway and force a confidence vote. We are taking a moment to recognize that the throne speech we delivered 8 months ago had no mention of COVID-19, had no conception of the reality we find ourselves in right now.
When Parliament resumed on September 23rd, 2020, efforts to re-establish investigations into the We Charity scandal were repeatedly blocked by the Liberals.
Nobody believes you.